I am going to go ahead and just share a short legal update. So one of the things that happened yesterday, this is not directly related to COVID, but I think it bears discussion because we've already started getting calls on the hotline about this. As you probably saw, Governor Murphy has signed the bills that are necessary to facilitate the legalization of recreational marijuana in New Jersey. As you recall, last November, the voters in New Jersey approved recreational marijuana to become legal, and now everything's been put in place, and I think we're going to start seeing recreational dispensaries pop up in New Jersey, or exactly how that's going to be handled. So if you haven't done it already, this is the time. Pull out your policies on drug testing, review them, make a decision on how you want to handle those from a cultural and a business and a risk point of view. Remember that if you're a federal contractor or you have a safety-sensitive workplace, you probably don't have a ton of leeway. Marijuana remains illegal on a federal basis, although I do think it's somewhere on the Biden administration's agenda to make a change in that regard. But you don't have as much leeway if you're a federal contractor, and certainly if you're safety sensitive, that's a different consideration. But think about your pre-employment testing. If you run a call center, if you have employees who are white collar and are just sitting behind a desk all day, maybe you don't want THC on your panel. Well, you've heard me say this before, one of the challenges of THC, it's not like alcohol, where if you have alcohol in your system and you're impaired, you're going to test positive. THC stays in the system for a very long time. Not great testing, and so someone could have used marijuana a week ago and it might still be in their system. They might still come up positive. So maybe you don't want to do pre-employment testing if you're not a federal contractor and you're not in a safety sensitive position. Maybe all you really want is reasonable suspicion testing, and if you're going to do that, you need to make sure that your managers and your supervisors have reasonable suspicion training. Look into that. And then post-accident testing, depending on the type of workplace that you have also, and that may be something that your workers' comp carrier really wants you to have. That's a conversation to have with them. All right, and just a few things on coronavirus. We are starting to see, you guys heard me talk all last year about the lawsuits are coming. Well, the lawsuits are here. There's a recent analysis done by Lex Machina, there's a LexisNexis affiliate. They did an analysis of what's been filed in federal courts and state courts, and they're seeing that we definitely have an increase in filings. In particular, we have an increase in filings of employment-related, COVID-related lawsuits. The most common that we're seeing, retaliation, discrimination, and FMLA claims. And the 4 districts with the most activity, 3 of those districts you may have employees in, or certainly a lot of our members have employees in. Eastern District of Pennsylvania, which is Southeastern Pennsylvania, District of New Jersey, which is in the entire state of New Jersey, Southern District of New York, and also the Southern District of Florida. So it's really a time to continue to think about what are you doing in these spaces as you hire, as you might reorganize, as you have employees who need time off for various reasons, related or not related to COVID. If you're not sure about stuff, please talk it through with an employment attorney, because the litigation is coming. And even though wage and hour is not here, I know the wage and hour stuff is coming as well. I just had a conversation this morning with a member investigated by the Department of Labor over some bonuses and some hazard pay that they gave during the pandemic or last year during the pandemic. So it's all coming. So please be alert to that. And I'm going to keep talking about vaccines probably until vaccines aren't an issue anymore. Because we still continue to get questions on them. Yes, you can require the vaccine if you have a legitimate health and safety reason, but keep in mind a bunch of stuff. First is the limited availability. You see people scrambling to try to get these vaccines, and in most places, it's really limited right now to your healthcare workers, to your older citizens, and to people with underlying health conditions. So to automatically say, whatever type of business you are, if you're not in healthcare, to say, oh yeah, you have 2 weeks to go out and get the vaccine, chances are your employees aren't even going to be able to find the vaccine that quickly. I think the COVID vaccine is similar to flu vaccines, and we've only really seen those mandated in the healthcare setting. So really just think about it. Talk it through again with an employment attorney. If you're a member, happy to talk it through with you. Remember, even if you are going to mandate it, you need to allow for reasonable accommodation on the basis of disability and or religion. And you've heard me say it before, carrot versus stick approach. I like the carrot approach, okay? Because the very first question you have to answer, this is if you have a conversation with me or probably any of you have a conversation with your employment attorney, the first question they're going to ask you is, okay, you mandated the vaccine, you have employees who say no, what are you going to do? The answer pretty much has to be you're going to fire them. We're seeing that those stories are coming up in the news. I just read a story about a waitress in New York. Her employer said, we're going to mandate the vaccine. She said, wait a minute, I'm 26, I'm in my childbearing years, I'm really not sure. I want to wait a couple months, kind of see if anything else pops up around side effects of the vaccine. The employer said, nope, we're firing you. So if you can't answer that very first question, you really need to think about whether or not you're going to mandate vaccines, especially in your populations that have limited safety data. They are doing some safety trials now for pregnant citizens, so that should be interesting. What about nursing, all those other groups that have not been specifically studied, so think about it. You also have the potential for legal challenges. You know, as I always say, leave the legal challenges to the big boys. Let Amazon get sued over that. You don't want to fight that battle and spend the time, energy, and money on it. Also, if you do mandate the vaccine and there is a negative outcome for the employee, they have a negative reaction, that may very well be a workers' comp event. That may be a conversation you want to have with your broker or your carrier. But either way, if it's going to be mandatory, if it's going to be voluntary, I would definitely say to implement a policy and do your education. Get that carrot going, right? Vacation bonuses. I just saw another one, Publix, the grocery store chain in the South, offering $125 gift cards to their employees. EEOC has not yet weighed in as to whether or not these pass legal muster. I think the concern would be if you offer a bonus to employees who get the vaccine and you have employees who can't get the vaccine for some legitimate reason, does that discriminate against them? So it's something to think about. But could you do some sort of vaccination bonuses? And what about benefits to the vaccinated? We've seen at least one large law firm say, we're not letting you back in the office until you're vaccinated. I've seen companies suggest we're not going to be able to let you travel on business. You're not going to be able to go to client visits unless you're vaccinated. So those are the types of things to think about. And if you are going to do something like that, it's a good time to review your job description. If you say to an employee, we're not going to let you travel until you get vaccinated, but travel is not mentioned in their job description, and then you say, well, you can't really do the job because you can't travel, that's a problem. Take a look at your job description. And you can ask for proof of vaccination. EEOC has said that, but again, only ask that question. Don't ask the next question. When you say, have you been vaccinated? The person says no, don't ask why not, because that can be a medical inquiry that is improper under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about, and we'll send around this Pew Research Study in the email that comes out after this. So Kevin alluded to this, Jan and Margaret alluded to this. A lot of places are thinking about coming back, right? And you know, how are we going to come back? How are we going to come back to a physical workplace if most of our employees have been remote during this time? In this study, 20% of the respondents had worked from home all or part of the time, or most of the time prior to the pandemic. 71% currently working from home all or most of the time. 54% of them want to keep working from home all or most of the time after restrictions are lifted. So it's really something you need to be thinking about, not just from a can we come back, will we be allowed to come back, what's the safest way to come back? It's do our people want to come back, right? You know, there are some folks who are thriving while teleworking, and there are other folks who are struggling while teleworking. So 42% in the same Pew poll, 42% of workers ages 18 to 49, and 53% of those ages 18 to 29 said it's been difficult for them to feel motivated to work from home, compared with only 20% of workers who are 50 and older. And then, not surprising, half of parents working from home with kids 18 or younger say it's been really hard to work without interruptions, and only 20% of other teleworkers have said that. So you really need to think about what are your employees going to want in the next sort of stage of all of this? What's going to be the best way to help people be as productive as possible? So as you sort of develop your plan going forward as to what might happen when we're allowed to all come back to work in the non-essential businesses, these are things to be thinking about. All right, so do we have any questions?
Amy, I saw one, may I share, that said,
Please.
if we're not going to mandate, that they typed in the chat, if we're not going to mandate a vaccine, should we still have a policy?
I think so. If you're going to strongly encourage the vaccine, I think it's important for employers to get communications out there to their employees, especially if we're all working from home, you know, it's really important that they understand that you do have a stance. I was talking to a member recently. They said they did a town hall like this. They had their safety person, and they got some resources from the community, and they educated themselves about vaccines. And they had a town hall just like this to talk to their employees about why it's so important to get vaccinated. That you know, this is not a situation where that they need to fear the vaccine. And I think educate and get a policy out there so your employees understand that you do have a stance. And if you are a member, talk to us. We can help you put together a policy. Absolutely. Contact hotline and we can help you with that. Okay. Any other questions? I'm trying to look quickly, but I don't want to keep everybody on while I'm skimming through everything. If there are other significant questions, what I try to do is always take a look at your questions and answer them next week as well. Kevin, was there anything else out there that we wanted to look at?
No, I think some are little specific. So I think, again, if someone needs follow-up, just give us a call to the hotline. Well, thank you all for hanging in there. I know we went a little bit over today, but there's a lot going on. And, you know, I want to compliment the MEA team, specifically the folks talking today. I mean, we are really dealing with a lot of new ground kind of topics. You know, we weren't thinking about vaccines before DE&I has changed. And I love that travel agent analogy. You know, sometimes right now it's just good to talk to somebody. And, you know, the benefit of the team at MEA is we're talking to 600 businesses. So, you know, feel free as part of that membership to reach out, because, you know, I think this is everything we're doing right now is we're stepping ahead, but we're not stepping too far ahead because it's still pretty gray out there. So again, appreciate what everyone on MEA side is doing, and appreciate the confidence you all have with us with being members. So we'll all get through this, and it's kind of an interesting and challenging time, but, you know, we're moving ahead. So thanks again. And we will see everybody next week with, I think it's the return to work safely. Take care.